The scream cut through the dinner rush like a siren, high-pitched and desperate in a way that made every conversation stop and every head turn. Claire Bennett's hands stilled on the wine bottle she was opening, her entire body going rigid with recognition. She knew that sound, had heard it hundreds of times in her previous life, before she'd traded a classroom for a serving tray. That was a meltdown. A real one. Not a tantrum, not manipulation. Pure sensory overload and panic wrapped in a child's voice that couldn't find words to explain the chaos happening inside their brain. "Jesus," muttered Tom, the other server working the section. "Someone needs to control their kid." "This is a nice restaurant." Claire was already moving before he finished speaking, weaving through tables toward the source. In the corner booth, a small boy, maybe 6 or 7, was curled into himself, hands pressed over his ears, screaming with a desperation that spoke of genuine distress. His father, a man in an expensive suit with exhausted eyes, was trying to reach him, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. "Ethan, please." "Buddy, I need you to calm down. We'll leave, okay? We'll go home right now. Just please stop screaming." But the words were making it worse. Claire could see it in the way the boy's body tensed with each syllable, the way he rocked harder, the way his screaming intensified. Too many words, too much input. The father meant well, but he was flooding his son with stimulation when what the child needed was the exact opposite. Claire didn't think. She just acted on instincts honed by years of working with autistic children. She dropped to her knees beside the booth, making herself small and non-threatening, and pulled out her order pad. Without speaking, without touching, she started drawing. Simple shapes. A circle, a square, a triangle. Over and over, her pen moving in steady, predictable patterns. The boy's screaming faltered. Not stopped, but changed pitch. Curiosity breaking through panic, Claire kept drawing. Added numbers beside each shape. 1 circle, 2 squares, 3 triangles. The pattern was predictable, soothing, giving the overwhelmed brain something concrete to focus on instead of the chaos of the restaurant. Slowly, incrementally, the screaming turned to sobs. The sobs to whimpers. The whimpers to shaky breathing. The entire process took maybe 90 seconds, but it felt like an eternity with every eye in the restaurant watching. When the boy finally uncurled enough to look at what Claire was drawing, she met his eyes briefly, then looked away. Direct eye contact could be overwhelming. Instead, she pointed to the shapes. 1, 2, 3, she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Pattern. Safe. Predictable. The boy's hand, still trembling, reached out to touch the paper. His finger traced the circle. 1, he whispered. 1, Claire confirmed. She drew another circle. 2, 2. His voice was stronger now, more present. Claire handed him the pen. Your turn. The boy took it with careful fingers and drew a wobbly circle. 3, perfect. Claire smiled but kept her gaze on the paper, giving him space. You're very good at patterns. I like patterns. The words came out stilted, careful, like each one required thought and effort. Me too. Patterns make sense when things feel too loud. Everything was too loud. He looked up at her, his brown eyes huge in his small face. The dishes, the voices, the lights, all together. Too much, I understand. Too much all at once. It's hard to think when everything is screaming at you, isn't it? He nodded, serious and solemn. You understand, I do. My brother is like you. He taught me about when things get too loud. The boy studied her with new interest. Your brother likes patterns too? He loves patterns, especially with numbers. He can tell you what day of the week any date in history was. It's like magic, but it's just patterns. For the first time since Claire had knelt beside the booth, she looked at the father. He was frozen, staring at her with an expression that mixed shock, relief, and something that looked like hope. Up close, he was younger than Claire initially thought, maybe late 30s, with dark hair showing early gray at the temples and the kind of bone-deep exhaustion that came from months or years of struggling. I'm sorry, he said, his voice rough. I didn't know what to do. I never know what to do when he gets like this. It's okay. Meltdowns are hard, especially in public. Claire kept her voice gentle, non-judgmental. What triggered it? Do you know? The noise, I think. And the lights. We were doing okay, and then someone dropped a tray across the room and he trailed off helplessly. I should have realized this place would be too much. I just wanted to take him somewhere nice, prove I could handle a normal dinner out. Claire heard the defeat in his voice, the self-recrimination. She'd heard it from so many parents, this desperate desire to make their child fit into a world that wasn't designed for them, and the crushing guilt when it didn't work. "There's no such thing as normal," Claire said. "Just different kinds of needs. Your son needs predictability and quiet. That's not wrong. It's just different from what most restaurants offer." The boy tugged on Claire's sleeve. "Draw more patterns?" "Sure." She took back the pad and drew a series of circles in increasing sizes. "Can you count them?" 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He pointed to each carefully. 5 circles. Growing pattern, exactly. "You're very smart." "I'm autistic," he said matter-of-factly. "Dad says it means my brain works different." "Not bad, just different. Your dad is right. Different isn't bad. Different is just different." The boy looked at his father for the first time since the meltdown started. "I'm sorry I screamed, Dad." The man's face crumpled for just a second before he got it under control. "You don't have to apologize, buddy. You were overwhelmed. That's not your fault. Claire says her brother is like me. I heard. That's really cool that she has a brother who understands patterns." The father extended his hand to Claire, seeming to notice her server uniform for the first time. "I'm Nathan Cross. This is my son Ethan, and I owe you. I don't even know how to thank you for what you just did." Claire shook his hand, noting the firm grip and the calluses that suggested he did more than just sit at a desk. "Claire Bennett. And you don't owe me anything. I just helped a kid who was having a hard time. In 90 seconds, you did what I've been failing to do for 6 years." Nathan's voice cracked slightly. "You understood him, knew what he needed. I've read every book, consulted every specialist, and I still can't figure out how to help my own son when he's overwhelmed. You're doing better than you think. You knew it was sensory. You tried to help. You just used words when he needed quiet." Claire glanced at Ethan, who was now contentedly drawing patterns on her order pad. "Autism is different for every person. What works for one might not work for another. You're learning your son's language. That takes time. 6 years feels like it should be enough time. Some languages take longer than others." Claire stood, her knees protesting the hard floor. "I should get back to work. My manager is probably having a heart attack." "Wait." Nathan pulled out his wallet. "Let me at least pay for your time. A tip or—" "I don't want your money." Claire's voice was firm but kind. "I'm glad I could help, Ethan. That's enough. Then let me hire you." Claire blinked. "What? Hire you? As Ethan's, I don't know what to call it, behavioral specialist? Companion? Someone who actually understands him and can help when I can't." Nathan was talking faster now, the exhaustion in his eyes replaced by desperate hope. "Name your price. I'll pay whatever you want. I just need someone who can do what you just did, who can reach him when I can't. Mr. Cross, Nathan. Please call me Nathan. Nathan, I'm a waitress. I'm not qualified to be anyone's behavioral specialist. But you knew what to do. You understood him immediately. That's more qualification than half the specialists we've seen who have walls full of degrees but can't connect with him." Nathan looked at his son, who was still drawing peacefully. "Please, I'm desperate. Ethan doesn't connect with people. He barely tolerates his current nanny, and she's scared of his meltdowns. You're the first person outside of me who he's let touch his space since his mother died." The information landed like a bomb. Claire looked at Ethan, at his small frame and careful movements, and felt her chest tighten. "I'm sorry. I didn't know. She died when he was born. Complications. It's just been us ever since." Nathan's voice was flat, reciting facts he'd repeated too many times. "I'm not good at this, at being what he needs. I try, but I work too much, and even when I'm home, I don't know how to reach him. You did in seconds what I can't do in days. That's not true. He loves you. I can see it in how he looks at you. But he doesn't trust me to help when things get hard. He trusts you. After 90 seconds, he trusts you." Nathan pulled out a business card. "Think about it, please. I'll pay you $500,000 a year. Full benefits. Whatever schedule works for you. I just need someone who understands him." Claire stared at the business card. Nathan Cross, CEO, Crosstech Industries. She recognized the name. Tech billionaire. AI development. The kind of wealth that made $500,000 a rounding error. "I can't," she heard herself say, even as part of her brain screamed at her to take the offer. $500,000. That was more money than she'd make in 10 years of serving tables. That was paying off student loans. That was security. That was also getting attached to a child who would break her heart all over again. "Why not?" Nathan asked simply. Because I already loved this job once and it destroyed me. Because getting close to kids like Ethan means caring about them, and caring about them means it hurts when you fail. Because I'm not strong enough to do this again. Because I'm not qualified, Claire said instead. I'm not a therapist or a specialist. I'm just someone who had a brother on the spectrum and learned some strategies. That's not enough to be responsible for your son's care. It's more than I have. More than most people have. Nathan looked at Ethan. He's drawing, calm, happy, because of you. That's qualification enough. Claire's manager appeared at her elbow, his expression strained. Claire, I need you back on the floor. We have tables waiting, I know. I'm sorry, Marcus. There was a situation I saw, and I appreciate you helping, but we're slammed and Tom can't cover your section alone. She's done working for you, Nathan said abruptly. I'm hiring her. Full-time, starting now. I'll compensate you for the lost labor. Name your price. Marcus blinked. Excuse me? I'm hiring Claire, paying her significantly more than you do. Effective immediately. Nathan pulled out his phone. What's your Venmo? I'll send you $5,000 right now to cover the inconvenience of losing a server mid-shift. Nathan, Claire hissed. You can't just buy out my employment. Why not? You said you're not qualified to be Ethan's specialist, but you are qualified to be a waitress. So stop being a waitress. Problem solved. The audacity was breathtaking. Claire opened her mouth to argue, then looked at Ethan. The boy was watching her with those huge brown eyes, holding up his pattern drawings like an offering. You'll come back? He asked quietly. You'll show me more patterns. And that was it, the trap, because Claire had always been weak for kids who needed her. Kids whose brains worked differently. Kids who just wanted someone to understand them without trying to fix them. I'll come back, she heard herself promise, and watched Nathan's expression transform into something like triumph mixed with relief. Monday? Nathan pressed. Can you start Monday? I'll have contracts drawn up. Whatever terms you want, vacation, healthcare, retirement, whatever makes you comfortable. This is insane, Claire said. You don't hire someone after 90 seconds. You don't offer them $500,000 based on one interaction. You're right. It's completely insane. But I've spent 6 years trying to be sane and rational and following expert advice, and none of it has worked as well as what you did in 90 seconds. Nathan's voice was raw with honesty. I'm desperate. Ethan is struggling. I'm failing him. You're offering hope. I'll pay whatever it costs for hope. Claire looked at Marcus, who was still processing the $5,000 Venmo transfer that had just hit his phone. Looked at Ethan, carefully drawing circles in increasingly complex patterns. Looked at Nathan, whose expensive suit and tech billionaire status couldn't hide the fact that he was just a scared father trying to help his son. Monday, she said, against every logical instinct. But we're doing this my way. Professional boundaries. Proper structure. This isn't some fairy tale where you throw money at problems and they disappear. I wouldn't dream of it. Nathan's smile was tired but genuine. Thank you, Claire. You have no idea what this means. She had some idea. But sitting in that restaurant, watching Ethan draw his patterns and feeling the weight of Nathan's desperation, Claire couldn't quite figure out if she'd just made the best decision or the biggest mistake of her life. Probably both. Knowing her luck. Nathan Cross's penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a glass tower in downtown Boston, and walking into it Monday morning, Claire felt like she'd entered a different dimension. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic city views. Furniture that looked like art installations filled spaces bigger than her entire apartment, and everything was so aggressively clean it felt sterile. This was where Ethan lived. This pristine, echoey space with hard surfaces and no softness anywhere. Claire's heart sank. Welcome, Nathan said, appearing from what looked like a home office. He'd traded his dinner suit for dark jeans and a casual button-down, looking more approachable but still expensive. Can I get you coffee, tea? Ethan's still sleeping, but he'll be up soon. Actually, can I see his room first? Before we do contracts or talk logistics, I need to understand his space. Nathan looked surprised but nodded. Of course. This way. He led her down a hallway lined with abstract art that probably cost more than Claire's student loans. Ethan's room was at the end, and Nathan knocked softly before opening the door. The contrast was immediate and telling. While the rest of the penthouse was minimalist and modern, Ethan's room was chaos. Toys scattered across every surface, books in precarious piles, drawings taped to walls in no particular order. A sensory tent in the corner, weighted blankets on the bed. noise-canceling headphones on the nightstand, and in the middle of it all, Ethan sitting cross-legged in his pajamas, lining up toy cars in precise rows. "Ethan, buddy." "Claire's here," Nathan said softly. Ethan's head snapped up, and his face transformed with recognition and something that looked like joy. "Pattern lady." "Hi, Ethan. I like your cars." "Is that a pattern?" "By color, then by size, then by type." He pointed to each row with precision. "Trucks, sedans, sports cars, all organized. That's a complex pattern. Multiple sorting criteria. You're very good at this." Ethan beamed, then looked at his father uncertainly. "Claire is staying?" "If that's okay with you. She's going to spend time with you. Help with patterns and other things. Is that all right?" "Yes." No hesitation. Ethan turned back to Claire. "Can we do more drawings?" "With numbers?" "Absolutely. But first I need to talk to your dad about boring grown-up stuff." "Can you play with your cars for a bit?" "How long is a bit?" Claire appreciated the question. Time was abstract for many autistic children. 20 minutes. I'll set a timer on my phone so you can see." "Okay, 20 minutes." Ethan pulled out a digital watch. "I'll time too, to make sure. Perfect. That way we're both keeping track." Back in the kitchen, Nathan poured coffee neither of them probably needed. "You were good with him." "The timer thing. I never thought of being that specific. Abstract time is hard for a lot of autistic kids. In a bit could mean anything. But 20 minutes is concrete, measurable. He can prepare himself for when you'll be back." Nathan made notes on his phone. "See, that's exactly what I need. Someone who actually understands him instead of just managing him." "About that. Before we go further, I need to be honest about something." Claire set down her untouched coffee. "I'm not a behavioral specialist. I have a degree in special education. I taught for 3 years at a school for children with autism. Then I quit. Why? Burnout. The system was broken. Too many kids, not enough resources, administrators who cared more about test scores than actual learning. I watched kids I loved struggle because we couldn't give them what they needed." Claire met Nathan's eyes. "I left because I couldn't watch it anymore. Couldn't keep failing kids who deserved better. That's why I'm serving tables instead of teaching." "So you walked away because you cared too much, not because you didn't care enough." "I walked away because I wasn't strong enough to keep fighting a system designed to fail kids like Ethan." That's not exactly a ringing endorsement for being his caregiver. Nathan was quiet for a moment. "Can I tell you about Ethan's mother?" The change in subject threw Claire. "If you want to." Sarah was a pediatric nurse. We met at a hospital fundraiser. She was brilliant, compassionate, completely devoted to helping kids. When we found out she was pregnant, she was thrilled. Spent 9 months preparing, reading every book, taking every class. His voice went flat. Then there were complications during delivery. The doctors had to choose. They saved Ethan. Sarah didn't make it. "Nathan, I'm so sorry." Ethan was born with the cord wrapped around his neck. Oxygen deprivation. The doctors said he might have developmental delays. They were right. He was diagnosed with autism at 2. Nathan's hands tightened on his coffee cup. Sometimes I wonder if Sarah would have been better at this. Would have known instinctively what he needed. Would have loved him in a way that actually helped, instead of just trying. "You love him. I saw it at the restaurant. I love him desperately. But love isn't enough. I don't speak his language. I don't understand his brain. I've hired the best specialists money can buy, and none of them connect with him the way you did in 90 seconds. So yes, you walked away from teaching because the system broke you, but I'm not the system. I'm one father with unlimited resources who's willing to do whatever it takes to help his son. That's what I'm offering. The chance to help one kid without bureaucracy or budget constraints or administrators who don't understand." Claire felt the offer's pull. Everything she'd hated about teaching had been the system, not the kids. What if she could actually help Ethan without fighting for resources? What if Nathan meant what he said about doing whatever it took? $500,000 is too much, she said finally. It's what you're worth. It's what you're desperate enough to pay. There's a difference. I'll do it for $200,000. Market rate for a full-time behavioral specialist with my education and experience. Nathan frowned. Claire, I'm offering you $500,000. Why are you negotiating down? Because I need to know you're hiring me for my skills, not because you're so desperate you'd pay anyone who could calm Ethan down. $200,000 is fair. It's what I'm worth based on qualifications, not based on your panic. You're remarkably stubborn. I'm practical. And I have conditions. Non-negotiable conditions. Name them. First, I'm not a nanny. I'm not doing your laundry or cooking your meals or managing your household. My job is Ethan, period. Agreed. I have housekeeping staff for everything else. Second, I make decisions about Ethan's care. If I say he needs something, you get it. If I say an approach isn't working, we try something new. You hired me for my expertise. Let me use it. Done. What else? Third, we have boundaries. Professional ones. I'm not living here. I work a schedule. I go home at the end of the day. This is a job, not a lifestyle. Something flickered in Nathan's expression. What if Ethan needs you outside those hours? Then you call me and I come. But you try first. Part of my job is teaching you to understand Ethan better. I'm not replacing you as his father. I'm helping you be a better one. Ouch. Am I wrong? No, you're completely right. I've been outsourcing Ethan's care because I don't know how to do it myself. That needs to change. Nathan extended his hand. Deal. $200,000. Your conditions. My commitment to actually learning instead of just paying someone else to handle things. Claire shook his hand. Then I guess we're doing this. My lawyers will have contracts ready by end of day. In the meantime, what do you need to get started? Time with Ethan, his files, medical history, psychological evaluations, education plan, anything that gives me the full picture. And I need to talk to his current nanny about what's been working and what hasn't. She quit last week. Said Ethan was too difficult. Nathan's jaw tightened, which is why I was at that restaurant. Trying to prove to myself I could handle one dinner out with my son without everything falling apart. You did handle it. You knew to try to help. You just needed better tools. Tools you have. Tools I learned from my brother in 3 years of teaching. Yeah. Claire checked her phone. We've got 5 minutes before Ethan's timer goes off. Tell me about his routine. What does a typical day look like? For the next 5 minutes, Nathan outlined Ethan's schedule with the precision of someone who'd carefully structured every moment. Wake at 7, breakfast, educational activities, lunch, more activities, dinner, bath, bed at 8. Everything timed, everything predictable. Who runs this schedule usually? Claire asked. Me in the mornings before work. The nanny during the day. Me again after 6. It's exhausting, and honestly, half the time he fights me on transitions. Because you're managing him, not engaging with him. Following a schedule isn't the same as connecting with your kid. I know. That's why I need help. Ethan appeared in the doorway, his digital watch clutched in his hand. 20 minutes. Time is up. Perfect timing, Claire said. Ready to do some patterns? Yes, but can we also do sensory play? I like sensory play. What kind? Sand, water. Kinetic sand is best. It moves but stays together. Satisfying. Claire looked at Nathan. Do you have kinetic sand? I'll have some delivered in an hour. Make it 2 pounds. Different colors if possible. And while you're at it, get modeling clay, finger paints, and a sensory bin kit. Ethan, show me what you like to play with while we wait. For the next hour, Claire watched Ethan play, taking mental notes. He lined things up, sorted by multiple criteria, avoided anything with loud noises or bright lights, loved patterns and predictability, spoke carefully, precisely, like each word required thought, made fleeting eye contact but always looked away quickly. He was brilliant and anxious and trying so hard to make sense of a world that didn't make sense to him. When the sensory supplies arrived, Claire set up a station on the kitchen floor. Plastic bins, different textures, everything washable. Want to explore? She asked Ethan. He approached cautiously, touching the kinetic sand with one finger. Then 2, then his whole hand. His expression transformed into something like bliss. Good texture. Very good texture. Want to make patterns with it? For 2 hours they played. Claire followed Ethan's lead, narrating what he was doing, introducing new concepts only when he seemed ready. Nathan watched from the kitchen counter, pretending to work on his laptop but obviously absorbed in their interaction. How are you doing that? He asked during a moment when Ethan was absorbed in building a sandcastle. Making it look so easy? I'm not doing anything. I'm following Ethan's lead, responding to what he's interested in. That's the secret. Stop trying to make him fit your agenda and fit into his instead. But he needs to learn things. Structure, education. He's learning right now. Spatial relationships, cause and effect, fine motor skills, problem solving. It's all education. It just doesn't look like a classroom. Claire watched Ethan carefully stack sand. Traditional education assumes all kids learn the same way. Ethan doesn't. So we teach him using what works for his brain. not forcing his brain to work like everyone else's. I've been doing this wrong for 6 years. You've been doing your best with the information you had. Now you have different information. That's not failure. That's growth. Nathan was quiet for a moment. Thank you for giving me a chance to be better at this. Thank you for being willing to learn. A lot of parents just want me to fix their kid. You're asking to understand him. That's rare. Ethan looked up from his sandcastle. Claire, can you stay for lunch? If your dad says it's okay, it's definitely okay, Nathan said quickly. What does Ethan usually eat? Chicken nuggets. Plain pasta. Apple slices. No mixing foods. Everything separate, Claire nodded. Classic safe foods. Predictable tastes and textures. Ethan, is that what you want today? Yes, but can you eat with me? Not just watch. I'd love to eat with you. They ate at the kitchen table, Ethan carefully eating each food group separately, Nathan watching with the intensity of someone memorizing every detail. When Ethan finished, he looked at Claire seriously. Will you come back tomorrow? Every day. I'm going to be spending a lot of time with you. Good, I like you. You understand patterns. I like you too. You're very good at teaching me about what you like. After Ethan returned to his room, Nathan walked Claire to the elevator. So how did I do? As a student learning to understand my son? You watched. You didn't interrupt. You asked questions at appropriate moments. That's a solid start. Claire pressed the elevator button. Tomorrow I want you to lead an activity. Pick something Ethan likes and spend 30 minutes doing it with him. I'll observe and give feedback. That's terrifying. That's parenting. Welcome to the trenches. As the elevator doors closed, Claire caught Nathan's expression, something between gratitude and fear. She understood both. This job was going to change her life. She just hoped it would also change Ethan's and Nathan's for the better, because if it didn't, if she failed this family the way the system had failed so many others, Claire wasn't sure she'd survive the heartbreak a second time. 3 weeks into the job, Claire realized 2 things. 1, Ethan was thriving. 2, Nathan was falling apart in the most unexpected way. Again, Ethan demanded, laughing as Nathan spun him in careful circles. They were in the living room, the furniture pushed back, music playing at a volume Ethan could tolerate. Nathan was following Claire's instructions about vestibular input, the spinning helping Ethan's sensory system regulate. 1 more time, then we take a break, Nathan said, breathless but smiling. It was the first real smile Claire had seen on him in weeks. After the spinning, Ethan collapsed onto his crash pad, giggling. Nathan sat beside him, both of them catching their breath. The sight made Claire's chest tight with something she didn't want to examine too closely. Good job, both of you, she said, making notes on her tablet. Ethan, your body needed that movement. How do you feel? Good. Calm. My brain isn't buzzing. Ethan looked at his father. You're good at spinning now, Dad. I had a good teacher. Nathan glanced at Claire. Both of you, this was the problem. Somewhere between teaching Nathan about proprioceptive input and watching him master complicated handshake games Ethan loved, Claire had started seeing him differently. Not as her employer or a desperate father throwing money at problems, but as a man genuinely trying to change. Learning his son's language 1 painful lesson at a time. Showing up even when he was exhausted from work. Even when Ethan rejected his attempts at connection. It was attractive in ways that had nothing to do with his money or looks. And that terrified her. I should go, Claire said, checking her watch. It's past 6. My shift ended 20 minutes ago. Stay for dinner, Nathan said quickly. Then catching himself. I mean, if you want. Ethan's been asking all week if you'd stay for dinner. No pressure. Ethan sat up. Please stay. Dad is trying a new recipe, for me, to expand my safe foods. You're cooking? Claire couldn't hide her surprise. Nathan had mentioned a private chef who prepared Ethan's meals. I'm trying. Claire said I should be involved in Ethan's routines, not just observe them. Nathan stood, brushing off his jeans. So I'm learning to cook foods Ethan actually eats. Tonight is homemade chicken nuggets. They're probably terrible. They're shaped like dinosaurs, Ethan added helpfully. I helped cut them. Claire knew she should leave. Should maintain the professional boundaries she'd insisted on. But looking at Ethan's hopeful face and Nathan's nervous expression, she found herself nodding. Okay. But I'm helping. Homemade chicken nuggets require proper breading technique. In the kitchen, Nathan had ingredients laid out with the precision of someone following a recipe like a legal document. Chicken breast, breadcrumbs, eggs, spices. Everything measured exactly. You're very precise, Claire observed, washing her hands. I'm terrified of messing up. Ethan's safe foods are sacred. If I ruin chicken nuggets, I might traumatize him for life. Or you might make a mess and teach him that imperfection is okay. That trying new things means sometimes failing. Claire picked up a piece of chicken. Besides, the fact that you're trying matters more than whether it's perfect. They worked. Side by side, Claire showing Nathan how to create an assembly line. Flour, egg, breadcrumb. Ethan watched from his stool, providing commentary. Dad's getting better at cooking. Last week he burned toast. This week only small burns. I appreciate the confidence, buddy. It's objective observation. You are improving. Data supports this conclusion. Claire laughed. He's got you there. Data doesn't lie. Everyone's a critic. But Nathan was smiling, and when his hand brushed Claire's reaching for the breadcrumbs, she felt electricity she absolutely should not be feeling about her employer. Dinner was surprisingly successful. The dinosaur nuggets were slightly overcooked but edible, and Ethan ate 4 of them, declaring them acceptable quality. For a kid who normally refused any variation in his safe foods, this was monumental. This is good, Nathan said, watching Ethan eat. Really good. He's eating something I made. You're connecting with him through food. That's powerful. Claire took a bite of her own nugget. Plus, these are actually pretty good. You followed the recipe perfectly. I'm good at following instructions. It's deviating from plans that terrifies me. You're getting better at that too. Last week you let Ethan change the schedule when he wasn't ready to transition from play to bath time, and had a minor panic attack about the disruption to routine. But you did it. That's what matters. After dinner, Ethan asked Claire to read his bedtime story. This had become routine over the past week, and Claire told herself it was fine, that this was part of building trust with Ethan. She definitely wasn't doing it because she loved the way Nathan watched them from the doorway, his expression soft. The pattern in this story is satisfying, Ethan announced halfway through. 3 little pigs, 3 houses, 3 encounters with the wolf. Very structured. You're right. Fairy tales often use the rule of 3. It's a pattern that feels complete. I like complete patterns. Incomplete patterns are stressful. They are. But sometimes life is incomplete patterns. That's okay too. Ethan considered this seriously. Is that why Dad gets stressed? Too many incomplete patterns in his life? Claire glanced at Nathan, who looked startled. Maybe. That's a very insightful observation. I'm good at observing patterns, even in people. Ethan yawned. Will you be here tomorrow? Every weekday. That's our pattern. Good. I like our pattern. After Ethan fell asleep, Claire found Nathan on the balcony, looking out at the city lights. He'd loosened his collar, his hair disheveled from the evening's activities. He looked younger, more approachable, more human. You okay? Claire asked, joining him. Ethan said I get stressed from incomplete patterns. A 6-year-old just psychoanalyzed me. He's very perceptive. Most autistic people are. They see patterns others miss. Is he right? Am I stressed because I need everything to be complete and structured? Claire thought about how to answer honestly. I think you're stressed because you've been trying to control an uncontrollable situation. Autism doesn't follow a script. Kids don't develop on predictable timelines. You can't fix Ethan because he's not broken. But you're wired to solve problems, so not being able to fix this one feels like failure. That's exactly it. Nathan's voice was rough. I built a billion-dollar company by identifying problems and creating solutions, but I can't solve my son. Can't make him fit into the world's expectations. Can't even figure out how to make him smile at me the way he smiles at you. He smiles at you. Just differently. You have to learn to see it. You make it look so easy. Understanding him. Connecting with him. I've been his father for 6 years and you've known him 3 weeks, and you're already better at this than I am. Nathan, stop. You're comparing yourself to someone who was trained for this. I have an education degree and professional experience. You're doing remarkably well for someone learning on the job. Am I? Or am I just paying you to be what he needs because I can't be? Claire turned to face him fully. You spun him in circles today until you were dizzy and he was laughing. You learned to make his safe foods from scratch. You ask questions about why he lines up his toys instead of just making him stop. That's not paying someone to do the work. That's doing the work, with you guiding every step. Everyone needs guidance sometimes. That doesn't make you a failure. That makes you smart enough to ask for help. Nathan looked at her, and in the city lights, his eyes were darker, more vulnerable. What if I'm getting too dependent on you? What if Ethan is? Then we adjust. Create more independence. That's part of the process. What if it's not Ethan I'm worried about? The words came out quiet, almost lost in the night air. Claire's heart hammered. Nathan, I know. Professional boundaries. You made them clear. But Claire, you're in my home every day. You're teaching me how to be a better father. You're making Ethan happier than I've seen him in years. And you're doing it all while looking at me like I'm not a lost cause, like I can actually figure this out. That's intoxicating in ways that have nothing to do with your professional skills. This is a bad idea. I'm your employee, Ethan's caregiver. Getting involved would complicate everything. I know, you're absolutely right, which is why I'm telling you this on the balcony at night instead of acting on it, because I respect your boundaries and I need you too much to risk losing you by crossing lines. Nathan stepped back, putting physical distance between them. I'm sorry. That was inappropriate. Please forget I said anything. But Claire couldn't forget. Because she'd been feeling the same pull, the same dangerous attraction to this man who was trying so hard to be better, who looked at his son with desperate love and at her with something that looked like hope. I should go, she said. Claire, please don't quit over this. I'll maintain distance. I'll be completely professional. Just please don't leave Ethan because I couldn't keep my feelings to myself. I'm not quitting. But Nathan, we need to talk about this. Really talk. Because you're right, this is complicated, and ignoring it won't make it go away. Tomorrow? Tomorrow. After Ethan's therapy session, we'll talk like adults about how to handle this without destroying what we've built. Nathan nodded, relief evident. Thank you, for not running, for being willing to figure this out instead of just leaving. I don't run from hard conversations. I learned that in therapy. Claire managed to smile. Besides, Ethan needs consistency. Whatever we're feeling, his needs come first. Agreed, his needs come first. But walking to her car, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that putting Ethan's needs first might mean eventually addressing the attraction growing between her and Nathan. Because unresolved tension would eventually affect Ethan whether they acknowledged it or not. And Claire had learned the hard way that ignoring problems didn't make them disappear. It just made them worse. Her phone buzzed with a text from her brother. How's the new job? You sound happy when we talk. That's new. Claire stared at the message. She was happy. Working with Ethan filled something that had been empty since she'd left teaching. Watching Nathan learn and grow as a father was satisfying in ways she couldn't quite explain, but happiness was dangerous when it was tied to other people, when it depended on things outside her control. It's good, she typed back. Complicated, but good. Complicated how? I'll explain later. Love you. Love you too. Be careful with your heart. You give too much away. Claire sat in her car, her brother's warning echoing. She did give too much away. That's why teaching had destroyed her. She'd cared too much about kids she couldn't save, about a system she couldn't fix. And now she was doing it again. Caring about Ethan, caring about Nathan, building something. That felt important and meaningful and absolutely terrifying in its potential to hurt her. But maybe that was the price of doing work that mattered. Maybe caring too much was better than not caring at all. She drove home, her mind full of Nathan's confession and Ethan's smile and the complicated tangle of professional duty and personal feeling that had somehow become her life. Tomorrow she'd figure out how to handle it. Tomorrow she'd have the hard conversation with Nathan about boundaries and ethics and what was best for Ethan. Tonight, she'd let herself feel the warmth of being needed, of making a difference, of building something real even if it was also terrifying. The conversation Claire planned with Nathan never happened, because the next morning Ethan's school called with news that derailed everything. They're expelling him, Nathan said, his voice tight with barely controlled fury as Claire arrived. Effective immediately. Said he's too disruptive, that they don't have the resources to accommodate his needs. Claire found Ethan in his room, curled in his sensory tent, rocking slightly. Not a meltdown, but close. The kind of overwhelmed that came from too many changes happening too fast. "Hey, Ethan," she said softly, kneeling near the tent entrance. "Can I come in?" A small hand emerged, pulling back the fabric. Permission granted. Inside the tent was dim, weighted blankets creating a cocoon. Ethan was holding his tablet, playing a pattern game with the sound off. "School said I can't come back," he whispered. "They said I'm too much trouble." Claire's heart cracked. "That's not true. You're not too much trouble. The school isn't equipped to help you learn the way your brain works. That's their limitation, not yours. But I tried. I really tried to be good, to follow their rules, to not get upset when things were loud." His voice broke. "I wasn't good enough." "Oh, Ethan, you were more than good enough. You are good enough exactly as you are." Claire sat cross-legged, making herself small and safe. "Sometimes places aren't right for us. That doesn't mean we're wrong. It means the place is wrong. Where will I go? If school doesn't want me, we'll figure it out. Your dad and I will find somewhere that understands how brilliant you are, somewhere that celebrates your brain instead of trying to change it. Promise? I promise. We won't stop until we find the right place." But after Ethan calmed down and went to play with his sensory bins, Claire found Nathan in his office, staring at his computer screen with the expression of someone trying to solve an impossible equation. "There are no schools," he said without preamble. "I've called every specialized school in Boston. Wait lists are years long. The ones with openings are either inadequate or," he gestured helplessly, "I don't know what to do. I've built companies, negotiated billion-dollar deals, and I can't figure out how to get my 6-year-old son into a school that won't destroy him." "What about homeschooling?" Claire asked. "I work 80 hours a week." "I can't homeschool him." "I can." Nathan looked up sharply. "What? I have a teaching license." "Special education certification. I can homeschool Ethan. Create a curriculum designed specifically for how he learns." Claire sat across from Nathan's desk. "It's not ideal long-term. He needs peer interaction eventually, but for now, while we look for the right school, I can teach him." "Claire, that's not your job. I hired you as a behavioral specialist, not a teacher. I was a teacher before I was anything else. And Ethan needs education that works for his brain, not against it. I can do that." She paused. "Unless you don't trust my teaching abilities." "Of course I trust you. I just don't want to take advantage of you. You're already doing so much. Then pay me appropriately for the additional responsibility. Adjust my contract to include educational services. Make it official." Nathan studied her. "Why are you doing this, really? Most people would see a kid getting expelled as a reason to leave. Too complicated. Too much work. Because Ethan deserves better than a system that gives up on him. Because I left teaching once and I'm not leaving again when a kid needs me." Claire met Nathan's eyes. "And because you asked me to help. So let me help. You're remarkable. You know that?" "I'm stubborn." "There's a difference." They spent the next week transforming one of Nathan's spare rooms into a classroom. Claire designed a curriculum built around Ethan's interests. Patterns, numbers, cause and effect. Instead of forcing him to sit still for hours, she built movement into every lesson. Math while bouncing on a therapy ball, reading while swinging. Science experiments with kinetic sand. Ethan thrived. "Look, Dad." Ethan held up his math worksheet, completed perfectly. "I did multiplication." "With patterns. It makes sense now." Nathan looked at the worksheet, then at Claire, his expression awed. "You taught him multiplication in a week?" "I taught him to see multiplication as a pattern extension. Groups of numbers repeating. His brain is wired for patterns. I just translated math into his language. His previous school said he was behind in math. That he couldn't grasp basic concepts, because they were teaching concepts in ways his brain couldn't process. There's nothing wrong with Ethan's intelligence. He just learns differently." Claire pointed to Ethan's work. "See how he drew arrays? That's advanced spatial reasoning. Most kids his age can't visualize multiplication that way. He's brilliant. He always was. He just needed someone to see it." The comment hung in the air, weighted with meaning. Nathan was looking at Claire with an expression she couldn't quite read. Gratitude, yes, but also something deeper, something that made her pulse quicken. "Claire, about what I said on the balcony. Ethan, why don't you show your dad the science experiment we did today?" Claire interrupted, not ready for this conversation in front of Ethan. They showed Nathan the vinegar and baking soda volcano they'd created. Ethan explaining the chemical reaction with precision that suggested he understood far more than his expelled school had given him credit for. After Ethan went to play, Nathan cornered Claire in the kitchen. "You keep avoiding talking about us, because there is no us. You're my employer, Ethan's father. This is professional, is it? Because it feels like more than professional when you rearrange your entire career to homeschool my son, when you stay late to help him through tough transitions, when you look at me like I'm not a failure for not knowing how to help him. Nathan, I'm falling for you." The words came out blunt, honest. "I know the timing is terrible. I know it complicates everything. But I can't pretend anymore that this is just professional gratitude. You've changed our lives, both of us, and I'm falling in love with you." Claire's breath caught. "You can't. This is transference. You're grateful I'm helping Ethan. That's not the same as love. Don't tell me what I'm feeling. I'm 37 years old. I know the difference between gratitude and love." Nathan stepped closer. "I love how you see Ethan for who he is instead of who you want him to be. I love your stubborn insistence on doing things right even when easier options exist. I love that you called me out for trying to pay you more than you're worth because you needed to know I valued your skills, not just my desperation. I can't do this. Getting involved with you risks everything we've built for Ethan. What if not getting involved risks it more? What if this tension between us eventually makes working together impossible?" Claire wanted to argue, wanted to maintain professional distance. But standing in Nathan's kitchen, watching him be vulnerable and honest, she couldn't deny what she'd been feeling. The pull toward him that had nothing to do with his money and everything to do with who he was becoming. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Last time I cared this much about students and their families, it destroyed me when I couldn't help them. If I let myself care about you and Ethan like this, if something goes wrong, then we'll figure it out together. Claire, I'm not the system that failed you. I'm not going to give up on you the way those schools gave up on their students. You say that now, but what if Ethan doesn't progress the way you hope? What if I can't help him enough? What if you realize I'm not worth the investment?" Nathan cupped her face with gentle hands. "You're not an investment. You're a person I'm falling in love with. Those are completely different things. This is a bad idea, probably, but I'm going to kiss you anyway, unless you tell me not to." Claire should have told him not to. Should have maintained boundaries. Should have protected herself from the inevitable heartbreak when this fell apart. Instead, she kissed him first. Nathan made a surprised sound, then pulled her closer, his hands in her hair, his mouth warm and desperate against hers. It was everything Claire had been trying not to want: connection, desire, the feeling of being seen as more than just a professional solving problems. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. "So that happened. That was a mistake. Felt like the opposite of a mistake. Nathan, we need rules, boundaries. Ethan can't know about this yet. He needs stability, not confusion about whether I'm his teacher or his dad's girlfriend." "Agreed. We take this slow. Figure out what this is before involving Ethan. And if it doesn't work out, then we'll handle it like adults. But Claire, I'm not planning to fail at this. I've failed at enough things. This won't be one of them." Claire wanted to believe him. Wanted to trust that this wasn't just another complication that would eventually hurt everyone involved. But looking at Nathan's face, seeing genuine hope there, she found herself willing to try. "Okay, we try. Slowly. Carefully. With Ethan's needs always first." "Always first," Nathan agreed. They were interrupted by Ethan calling from his room. "Claire, Dad, I made a new pattern. Come see!" They looked at each other, and Claire saw her own thoughts reflected in Nathan's expression. Whatever was happening between them, Ethan's well-being had to come first. Always. "Coming, buddy," Nathan called. Then quieter to Claire. "To be continued?" To be continued. They found Ethan surrounded by blocks, arranged in increasingly complex patterns. He explained his system with excitement, showing how each pattern built on the previous one, creating a mathematical sequence that was genuinely impressive. Claire took notes, already planning tomorrow's lesson around his discovery. Nathan sat beside his son, asking questions that showed he was actually listening and understanding. And for one perfect moment, Claire let herself hope this could work. That she could have this meaningful work, a child who was thriving, and maybe, possibly, a man who looked at her like she was worth the risk. The hope was terrifying, but it was also intoxicating, and Claire was tired of being afraid. 2 months into their secret relationship, Claire learned that happiness made her careless. She should have seen the warning signs, should have noticed the woman lingering outside Nathan's building, camera in hand. Should have realized that Nathan's ex-wife wouldn't stay quiet forever about the young teacher moving into her former husband's life. The article hit the internet on a Tuesday morning. Tech billionaire's questionable childcare. Is Nathan Cross exploiting his son's nanny? Claire read it with growing horror. Anonymous sources, obviously Nathan's ex-wife Victoria, claiming Claire had no proper credentials, that Nathan was paying exorbitant amounts for companionship disguised as childcare, that Ethan was being homeschooled by an unqualified waitress. Photos of Claire and Nathan at a coffee shop, sitting too close, looking too intimate. They're making it sound sordid, Claire said, her hands shaking as she showed Nathan the article. Like I'm some gold digger who's taking advantage of your situation. It's Victoria. She's been trying to get more money in the divorce settlement. This is her leverage. Nathan was already on his phone with his lawyers. We'll sue for defamation. Get a retraction. This is all lies, except it's not all lies. We are involved. I am living here most days now. And I did start as a waitress. Claire felt panic rising. Nathan, what if they investigate? What if they find out we're together and decide I'm unfit to teach Ethan? No court would take Ethan from a stable, loving home because his teacher and his father are in a relationship. You don't know that. I'm not his legal guardian. I have no rights here. And if Victoria pushes this, if she makes it about your judgment, about whether you're fit to have custody, she can't take Ethan from me. I'm his father. She was your wife. She has lawyers. And now she has ammunition. Claire paced the kitchen. I should leave. Remove myself from the equation before this gets worse. Don't you dare. Nathan caught her hands. Don't let Victoria win by scaring you away. That's exactly what she wants. I'm not leaving because I'm scared of her. I'm leaving because I won't be the reason you lose your son. You're the reason I finally know how to connect with him. You think I'm letting that go because Victoria is bitter about our divorce? They were interrupted by Ethan appearing in the doorway, his tablet clutched to his chest. Why are people saying bad things about Claire? I read the article. They said she's not a real teacher. Claire's heart sank. Ethan, you shouldn't have read that. It was on Dad's computer. I saw my name. His voice was small, scared. They said I'm not learning properly, that Claire doesn't have the right papers. Nathan knelt in front of his son. Ethan, buddy, listen to me. Claire is an excellent teacher. She has all the right credentials. The article is written by people who don't understand how special your education is. But what if they make Claire leave? What if I have to go back to regular school? Tears welled in Ethan's eyes. I can't go back there. They don't understand me. No one is making Claire leave, and you're not going back to a school that doesn't appreciate how brilliant you are. Nathan's voice was firm. I promise, but promises weren't enough. By afternoon, Nathan's lawyers had called with worse news. Victoria was filing for an emergency custody review, claiming Nathan's judgment was impaired by his relationship with an unqualified employee. That Ethan was being isolated and denied proper socialization. This is a nightmare, Claire said after Nathan relayed the information. Everything she's claiming, they can twist to look true. I am your employee. I am teaching Ethan at home. We are in a relationship. The optics are terrible. The optics don't matter. The truth matters. Ethan is thriving. You're qualified. Our relationship doesn't impact your ability to teach him. Tell that to a judge who sees a billionaire paying his girlfriend $500,000 to homeschool his special needs child. It looks like I'm taking advantage, like you're not thinking clearly. Then we prove them wrong. We document everything, show Ethan's progress, get expert testimony about your teaching methods, or I leave and remove the ammunition Victoria is using against you. Nathan's expression hardened. If you leave because you're actually done with this relationship, with teaching Ethan, that's your choice. But if you're leaving because you're scared of a legal fight, that's letting fear make decisions instead of love. This isn't about fear. This is about protecting Ethan. Ethan needs you. He's told me every day for 2 months that you're the first teacher who's ever made sense to him. You think abandoning him now protects him? It destroys him. Claire knew he was right. But she also knew that her presence was being weaponized against Nathan. Against Ethan. Everything she'd built with them was being twisted into something ugly by a woman who had never even met her. I need time to think, she said finally. I need to talk to my own lawyer. Figure out what's best. Promise me you won't disappear without talking to me first. I promise. But Nathan, I can't be the reason you lose custody of your son. I won't live with that. She left the penthouse for the first time in days, driving aimlessly through Boston while her phone exploded with messages. Her brother, worried after seeing the article. Former teaching colleagues, some supportive, others judgmental. And Nathan, texting repeatedly, "Please don't run. We can fight this. Together." Claire ended up at her old apartment, the small studio she'd kept but barely used since essentially moving into Nathan's place. It felt tiny after the penthouse, cramped and dark, but it was hers, separate from the complicated tangle her life had become. Her brother called within minutes of her arrival. "I saw the article. Are you okay?" "I don't know. My relationship with Nathan is being used to take away his son. The teaching I've been doing is being called exploitation. Everything good has been twisted into something ugly. Is any of it true? Parts of it. I did start as a waitress. I am in a relationship with Nathan. I am teaching Ethan at home." Claire sank onto her couch. "But the way they're framing it, like I'm some opportunist taking advantage, that's not true. I love Ethan. I love Nathan. This isn't about money. Does Nathan know that? He says he does. He says we'll fight this. But what if fighting makes things worse? What if the court decides I'm a bad influence and restricts my access to Ethan entirely?" Her brother was quiet for a moment. "Claire, when you left teaching the first time, you told me the worst part wasn't burning out. It was giving up. Walking away from kids who needed you because the system was too broken to fight. Is that what you're doing now? Giving up before the fight even starts?" "This is different. Ethan has a father who loves him. Nathan doesn't need me to fight for Ethan. He can do that himself. Can he? Or does he need someone who actually understands Ethan's needs to help him make the case that homeschooling is working? That you're not some unqualified girlfriend but a trained educator providing specialized services?" Claire closed her eyes. Her brother was right. Running away now would be giving up on Ethan exactly when he needed her most. But staying meant enduring public scrutiny, legal battles, the possibility of losing anyway and having to watch Ethan get placed in a school that would destroy his love of learning. "I'm scared," she admitted. "What if I stay and fight and we lose? What if Ethan ends up worse off because I was too stubborn to step away? What if you leave and Ethan loses the first teacher who ever understood him? You think that doesn't damage him? Claire, you don't have a perfect choice here. You have a choice between certain harm and possible harm. I know which one you've always chosen before." After they hung up, Claire sat in her dark apartment and thought about Ethan. About his face when he finally understood a math concept. His excitement showing her new patterns he'd discovered. His careful question 2 weeks ago. "If you and Dad get married, would you still be my teacher? Or would you be my mom?" She'd deflected, said they weren't talking about marriage. But Ethan's question revealed what she'd been avoiding. She wasn't just Nathan's girlfriend or Ethan's teacher anymore. She'd become family, and family didn't run when things got hard. Her phone buzzed. "Nathan, Ethan asked if you're coming back. I told him you needed time to think. He said to tell you he finished the math unit ahead of schedule and wants to show you his work. He said to tell you that patterns make sense when you explain them. Please come back." Claire stared at the message, tears blurring her vision. She'd spent 2 years avoiding attachment, protecting herself from the pain of caring too much. But somehow, despite every careful boundary, she'd fallen in love with a man and a child who needed her. And they were asking her to be brave enough to stay. She typed back, "I'm coming back. But we do this right. Full transparency with the court. Documentation of everything. I won't hide or apologize for being qualified and caring about Ethan." Nathan's response was immediate. "Thank you. We'll fight this together, all 3 of us." Driving back to the penthouse, Claire made a decision. If Victoria wanted to question her credentials, fine. Claire would compile every piece of documentation proving she was exactly what Ethan needed. Her teaching license, her certifications in special education, Ethan's progress reports showing he'd advanced 2 grade levels in reading and 3 in math. Testimonials from specialists they'd consulted who unanimously agreed Ethan was thriving. She wouldn't let fear or Victoria's manipulation drive her away from work that mattered. From people who mattered. When she arrived at the penthouse, Ethan was waiting by the door, his math work clutched in his hands. "You came back." "Of course I came back." "You have math to show me. I thought maybe you'd leave, like my mom left, because things got hard." His voice was matter-of-fact, but his eyes were scared. Claire knelt down to his level. Ethan, I'm not leaving. Things are going to be complicated for a while. Some people don't understand what we're doing here. But I'm staying. I promise. Even if people say mean things? Even then, because you're worth fighting for. Your education is worth protecting, and I don't give up on students just because people don't understand. Ethan studied her seriously. Dad said the same thing. That we're a team. That teams don't quit when things get hard. Your dad is right. We're a team. Claire looked up at Nathan, who was watching from the hallway. All three of us. And teams stick together. Okay, then I'll show you my math. Ethan took her hand with careful fingers. I did extra problems, because math makes sense now. Before you, it didn't. But you make it make sense. Walking into the apartment with Ethan's small hand in hers, Claire felt the weight of her decision. This would be hard. The legal fight would be brutal. Victoria would dig up every mistake Claire had ever made. But looking at Ethan's excited face and Nathan's grateful expression, Claire knew she was making the right choice. Sometimes loving people meant fighting for them. Even when the fight was scary, even when you might lose, and Claire was done running from fights that mattered. The custody hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks out, which gave Claire time to prepare. She compiled documentation that would have made her grad school professors proud, detailed lesson plans, progress assessments, standardized test results showing Ethan performing above grade level in every subject, video recordings of teaching sessions, letters from pediatric specialists confirming that homeschooling was optimal for Ethan's needs. This is impressive, Nathan's lawyer said, reviewing the materials. You've essentially created a full educational portfolio. Most homeschooling parents don't have half this documentation. Most homeschooling parents aren't being accused of educational neglect by a vindictive ex-wife, Claire replied. I want zero doubt that Ethan is receiving superior education. The hearing itself was worse than Claire imagined. Victoria's lawyers painted her as an opportunist who'd manipulated her way into a vulnerable family. They brought up her leaving teaching, implying burnout meant she was unstable. They questioned why Nathan needed to pay so much for childcare unless something inappropriate was happening. Miss Bennett, Victoria's attorney began, his tone condescending. You were working as a waitress 6 months ago. Suddenly you're earning $200,000 teaching one child. Doesn't that seem unusual? I'm earning market rate for a private educator with specialized training in autism spectrum disorders. My salary reflects my qualifications and the individualized nature of my work. But you left teaching. Your previous school asked you to resign, didn't they? I resigned voluntarily after 3 years because the public school system wasn't equipped to provide the individualized attention autistic students need. That's exactly why private education for children like Ethan is necessary, or convenient. You met Mr. Cross at a restaurant where you were serving him. Within weeks, you were living in his home and dating him. That's not education. That's opportunism. Nathan's lawyer objected before Claire could respond. Your Honor, Miss Bennett's personal relationship with Mr. Cross has no bearing on her teaching qualifications. Her credentials speak for themselves. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, looked at Claire directly. Miss Bennett, I've reviewed your documentation. Ethan's progress is remarkable, but I'm concerned about the blurred boundaries between educator and romantic partner. How do you maintain professional objectivity when you're emotionally involved with your student's father? Claire took a breath. Your Honor, I won't pretend the boundaries aren't complicated. But Ethan's needs always come first. Every educational decision I make is based on research, best practices, and what works for his specific learning style. My relationship with Nathan began after I'd been working with Ethan for several weeks and seen clear progress. It didn't change my professional approach. It just meant I had additional personal investment in Ethan's success. Additional investment or additional motivation to remain employed regardless of educational outcomes. If I were motivated purely by employment, I'd tell Nathan what he wants to hear instead of pushing back when I disagree with his parenting decisions. I'd focus on keeping him happy instead of advocating for Ethan's needs. But I don't. I've challenged Nathan repeatedly on everything from screen time to social skills development. Our relationship works because we both prioritize Ethan's well-being over our own comfort. The judge made notes. Mr. Cross, why haven't you enrolled Ethan in a specialized school? Surely with your resources you could afford the best facilities. Nathan stood. We tried, Your Honor. Ethan was expelled from his previous school for being too disruptive. I contacted every specialized school in Boston. Wait lists were years long, or the programs weren't appropriate for Ethan's needs. Miss Bennett offered a solution that's working remarkably well. Ethan is thriving academically and emotionally. He's learning at his own pace without the sensory overload and social pressure that caused his previous meltdowns. And you don't find it convenient that this solution allows you to keep your girlfriend in your home full-time? I find it fortunate that Ethan has an educator who understands him. Whether that educator is also someone I care about personally is separate from her professional qualifications. Nathan's voice was steady. Your Honor, I'm not a perfect father. I've made mistakes. But hiring Claire wasn't one of them. She's transformed Ethan's life. He's confident, curious, excited about learning. That's not exploitation. That's exactly what he needed. Victoria's lawyer presented their expert witness, an educational psychologist who'd never met Ethan but testified that homeschooling autistic children often led to poor socialization and developmental delays. Nathan's lawyer countered with Ethan's actual therapists, who unanimously agreed he was developing appropriately and that Claire's teaching methods were exemplary. Then the judge asked to speak with Ethan. Claire's heart hammered as Ethan entered the courtroom, his noise-canceling headphones around his neck, his favorite weighted vest visible under his shirt. He looked small and nervous, his eyes finding Claire immediately. The judge spoke gently. Ethan, I'm Judge Martinez. I want to ask you some questions about school. Is that okay? Ethan nodded, his hands fidgeting with the hem of his vest. Can you tell me about what you're learning with Miss Bennett? Lots of things. Math patterns, reading comprehension through graphic novels because pictures help my brain process stories, science experiments with sensory elements so I can learn through touch and observation. Ethan's voice gained confidence as he talked about subjects he loved. Claire says my brain works differently, not wrong. She teaches me in ways that make sense for how I think. Do you miss going to your old school? Ethan's hands stilled. No, old school was loud and confusing. Teachers got angry when I needed breaks. They said I wasn't trying hard enough. But I was trying. My brain just needed different things. What's different about learning with Claire? She understands when I need movement breaks. She lets me use my tablet for writing because handwriting is hard for my motor skills. She explains things with patterns and systems instead of just words. Ethan looked at Claire. She sees what I'm good at instead of just what's hard for me. Are you happy learning at home? Yes, but Claire says eventually I'll need to interact with other kids. She's working on finding social groups where I can practice friendship skills without overwhelming sensory input. She says education isn't just academics. It's learning to be in the world comfortably. Judge Martinez smiled slightly. You're very articulate, Ethan. One more question. How do you feel about Claire dating your father? Ethan considered this seriously. At first it was confusing. But Claire explained that adults can have different kinds of relationships. She's my teacher during school time. Dad's girlfriend during their time. They keep the roles separate so I don't get confused about boundaries. And she still prioritizes my education even when she and Dad disagree about other things. Does it bother you that they're together? No, it makes Dad happier. When Dad is happy, he's more patient with me. Plus, if they get married, Claire would be here all the time. That would be good for my routine. Consistency is important for my nervous system regulation. The judge thanked Ethan, and he was escorted out. Claire could barely breathe. Everything came down to this moment. Whether the judge believed Ethan was thriving or being isolated. Whether Claire's credentials outweighed the complicated personal dynamics. Whether love and professional competence could coexist. I'll have a decision within the week, Judge Martinez said. Until then, current arrangements continue. The waiting was torture. Claire threw herself into lesson planning, creating backup curricula in case the judge ruled against them and Ethan needed to transition to traditional school. Nathan was tense and distracted, working from home so he could be available if the court called. Ethan sensed the anxiety. Are they going to make me leave, Claire? He asked one evening during dinner. We don't know yet, buddy. But whatever happens, we'll figure it out together. Nathan squeezed Ethan's shoulder. I don't want a different teacher. Claire understands me. I know. I don't want that either. 5 days later, the judge's decision arrived. Nathan read it aloud while Claire and Ethan listened, both frozen with anticipation. After careful consideration of all evidence and testimony, this court finds that Ethan Cross is receiving appropriate education under Miss Bennett's instruction. His academic progress exceeds expectations, and his emotional development shows significant positive growth. While the personal relationship between Miss Bennet and Mr. Cross is unconventional, there is no evidence it negatively impacts Ethan's care or education. Nathan's voice cracked with relief as he continued. Therefore, custody remains with Mr. Cross. However, Miss Bennet must maintain detailed educational records subject to quarterly review, and Ethan must participate in at least one supervised social activity per week to ensure appropriate peer interaction. Court will revisit this arrangement in 6 months to assess continued progress. Claire felt tears streaming down her face. We won. We won. Nathan pulled her into a hug, then included Ethan. You get to keep your teacher, buddy. Good. I was worried I'd have to explain everything to someone new. That's exhausting. Ethan hugged them both. Can we celebrate with pizza? Homemade pizza counts as home economics education. Claire laughed through her tears. Absolutely. Pizza is an excellent application of fractions in chemistry. That night, after Ethan was asleep, Nathan found Claire on the balcony where everything had started months ago. You stayed. Even when it got ugly, you stayed. I told you, I don't give up on students who need me. Claire leaned into him. Besides, someone had to protect you from your own tendency to throw money at problems instead of actually solving them. I've gotten better at that. You've taught me more than just how to understand Ethan. You've taught me how to be present, how to fight for what matters instead of just buying solutions. You were always capable of it. You just needed someone to show you how. Nathan turned her to face him. Ethan asked if we were getting married. I told him that was a conversation for adults to have first, so I'm having it. Claire Bennet, I know this is fast. I know we've barely survived one legal battle and shouldn't jump into major life decisions. But I want to marry you, not because you're Ethan's perfect teacher, though you are. Not because you're convenient, though having you here is the best thing that's happened to this family. But because I love you. Because you've made me braver and better. Because you see both of us, Ethan and me, as we actually are instead of who you want us to be. Claire felt her heart stutter. Nathan, you don't have to answer now. I don't even have a ring yet. I just needed you to know. After watching you fight for us in court, after seeing you refuse to run even when it would have been easier, I'm certain. You're it for me. I love you too. But Nathan, are you sure? Marriage means I'm Ethan's stepmother. That's a permanent responsibility. No matter what happens between us personally, I'd be choosing to be his parent forever. I know. Is that something you want? Claire thought about Ethan's careful trust, his excitement about learning, the way he'd asked if she'd still be his teacher if she became his mom. Yes, I want that. I want all of it. The complicated logistics, the legal responsibilities, the daily chaos of raising an autistic child. I want to be his mom, then marry me. Make this official. Make this family real. Yes. Claire kissed him, laughing and crying simultaneously. But I'm not wearing a ring that costs more than my car. What if it costs slightly less than your car? Nathan. I'm kidding. Mostly. We'll pick one together. Something you actually like instead of what I think you should like. Look at you, compromising. Growth. I had a good teacher. They stood on the balcony, holding each other while Boston glittered below them. 6 months ago, Claire had been serving tables and protecting her heart. Now she was engaged to a man she loved, about to become stepmother to a child who'd stolen her heart completely. Ethan's going to ask a million questions about wedding logistics, Claire said. Timeline, location, food options, exactly how his routine changes. We'll need visual schedules and social stories. I'm counting on you to handle that. I'm good at money and business. You're good at actual parenting. We're a team. We handle it together. Together. Nathan agreed. From now on, everything together. And standing there, Claire realized her brother had been right. She did give too much of her heart away, but maybe that wasn't weakness. Maybe it was exactly the strength needed to build something real. A family formed not by biology, but by choice, by daily commitment to understanding each other, by refusing to give up when things got hard. 6 months ago, she'd walked into a restaurant and calmed a screaming child. Now she had a son who called her his teacher, a partner who saw her completely, and work that mattered more than she'd ever imagined possible. Some people said she'd gotten lucky. Claire knew better. She'd gotten brave, and that made all the difference.